Why are Chinese people so grumpy? That's not true, is it? Well, in the Chinese language, there is no small talk. The goal is very to the point. It's transactional, and we don't have this whole 5-minute chatter about weather. We are factual and to the point, and this can very much be interpreted as insulting. Chinese culture often draws a hard line between how we converse with the insiders of our lives, so our friends and family, versus the outsiders, strangers and acquaintances. To many, a stoic face, which is a lot of our baseline, is a sign of maturity and composure. There is no fake smiles and general niceties going on. Many Chinese people find the constant Western smiling and grinning can be interpreted as insecure or even suspicious. Spatial awareness is also a factor. In crowded cities where most of us come from, Chinese people develop a sense of tunnel vision. We're very focused on just navigating, walking, and not being pickpocketed, which can look like we are ignoring others. There's also a lack of eye contact. In some contexts, intense eye contact is seen as a challenge or a confrontation rather than a greeting. And our work culture of 996, working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, it really doesn't leave much room or energy for cheerful conversing. And in China, there is such a hyper level of competition. From a young age, the national college, university exams just fosters such an intense, serious mindset. The whole Chinese curriculum is very one-sided, academically focused, which they're actually trying to have a little bit more balance with, because they're finding that, children and humans need a balance of academic and social and emotional support. Who knew? Urban density, living in a city of 20 million people is inherently stressful all by itself. And the older generations live through extreme hardship, so their interpretation and level of toughness has turned into a survival mechanism. If you see Chinese people fighting at a restaurant, they're likely arguing about who gets to pay the bill. So honesty versus rudeness. Being told that you've gained weight is a sign of care and intimacy, meaning that I care about your health. I've experienced this one or two, maybe a few times in my life. Yeah, it sucks, but you know that they come from a place of care. And once you are a guest in a Chinese home, the grumpiness vanishes right away. You are bombarded with hospitality, let's just say, and you better be ready to eat at least 2 different servings of supper, because that is to be expected. So Chinese people use food as love. They don't often ask you how you are. They'll ask you, have you eaten yet? And loyalty. So once a friend is made in the Chinese culture, the level of commitment is often much higher than in some of the more surface level, maybe polite Western circles. And Chinese media is filled with some of the most self-deprecating and witty humor on the planet. So we really don't take ourselves too seriously. So just remember that Chinese social interaction and culture can appear cold at first, but it is incredibly warm once you are part of the inner circle. What are the Chinese rules for frugal versus cheap? Frugality is about being resourceful, and cheapness is about self-interest. Frugality is a Confucian virtue that is related to character, and frugality focuses on long-term value of an item. Cheapness often focuses on strictly the immediate price tag. A frugal person saves money to provide for their family's future. A cheap person saves money at the expense of their family's comfort. Frugality is a choice made from a position of strength. And cheapness often stems from a scarcity mindset, regardless of one's actual wealth. You can be frugal with yourself, but if you are not generous with others, you might be cheap. And being cheap suggests that you don't value the person that you are with. Being frugal means that you value the hard work that it took to earn that money. And as an example, frugal means keeping every plastic bag to use for your trash liner. And don't get me started about all these cloth bags now. I no longer have my regular supply of plastic bag garbage liners. And being cheap is taking extra napkins and condiments from restaurants. Being frugal, on one hand, is repairing a pair of good quality shoes many times. And being cheap is buying $5 shoes that hurt your feet and need replacing regularly. Frugality is about buying the best and crying once. Cheap people buy things that they don't need just because they are on sale. Don't fall for that trap. The older generation views frugality as a survival mechanism from harder times. The younger generation views frugality as minimalism and sustainable living. A frugal teacher teaches their children the value of $1. And in Chinese culture, inheritance is the ultimate goal, saving for not just the next generation, but many generations beyond. And with the Chinese youth, there is a growing new trend called reverse consumption, which is basically being proud of being frugal. And cheapness is a barrier to family unity. Frugality is all about the shared goal. So frugality is a strategy and cheapness is often a reflex. Ultimately, the frugal person owns their money, but the cheap person's money owns them. Did you know that the Western society is actually what's keeping you broke? This might sound like a conspiracy theory, but there are very real systematic economic structures that make wealth accumulation feel like running up a down escalator. In many Western societies, the barrier to entry for a middle-class life is paved with high interest or high balance debt. You pay $40K to $100K for a college degree just to get an interview for a job that barely covers the monthly loan interest. You are punished for not having debt, but crushed if you have too much. We've moved from save then buy to buy now, pay later. And don't get me started on mortgages and rent costs. Inflation is the hidden tax, and it degrades your dollar every day. When the cost of goods rises faster than wages, your purchasing power is being shaved off through inflation, and the rest is being taxed away. We in the West are living on a keeping up treadmill. Every raise is immediately swallowed by a more expensive car or vacation. On the flip side, if you look at the Asian model, just one small example of living with your parents well into your 30s is common and carries no social stigma. In fact, it's a financially very intelligent strategy in order to save up for that eventual down payment on a property. And there is a strong counter current in Asian traditions that emphasizes the importance of thrifting, reuse, no waste, being innovative with what you already have, and not always consuming and striving for more. There's often a social pride in getting a good deal in the Asian cultures, and living below one's means is normal. In cities like Tokyo or Seoul or Taipei or Hong Kong, the cost of a starter home is often what Westerners would call a micro apartment or shack. In many Asian urban centers, owning a car is an expensive luxury, not a baseline or a survival requirement. And Asians eat out far more frequently than we do in the West, but they spend less because the infrastructure and the amount of choices have far more low-cost options, healthier options for fresh hot meals and different food carts and things like that. So it's not your fault. It's just because you live in the West. Why are Chinese people so afraid of mental health? There's a belief that if you just work harder, you won't have time to be sad. Survival was the only metric of success for many generations and decades. There is such a long history of historic trauma and survival. The concept of boundaries is often misunderstood as rebellion or isolation. Self-care can be mistranslated and is often seen as laziness. When you are focused on finding food, being depressed feels like a luxury. This creates a generational gap where elders view mental health as a first world problem. If a child has depression, parents feel that it reflects on their failure as protectors and parents. This leads to significant covering up of symptoms to maintain a perfect public image. There is a fear that the community will view the family as tainted or weak. If a problem can't be fixed with a pill or a clear action, it's simply ignored. There is a heavy reliance on lifestyle fixes and cures. Sleeping more, eating better. Silence was a survival mechanism during the many periods of political instability in China. Many elders believe that willpower is the only cure for a wandering mind. This toughness is passed down as a badge of honor. Modern stressors, career, burnout, are often compared unfavorably to past poverty and wars and famines. A history of mental illness is often viewed as a genetic flaw. Labels are seen as sticky. Once you are diagnosed, you are branded for life. There is also a fear that instability will be passed on to the next generation. This kind of pressure keeps young people from seeking help until they hit a breaking point. And this also creates a don't ask, don't tell type of culture and policy within the household. Privacy is valued so highly that airing dirty laundry is a cardinal sin. One's duty is to fulfill roles, son, daughter, worker, without complaint. Expressing emotional pain can be seen as selfish or disruptive to the harmony. Resilience is measured by how much you can suffer without breaking. The self is defined often by relationships in Chinese cultures, not internal emotional states. There are signs of hope and shifts in the Chinese culture. There is a slow decoupling of mental health from madness in terms of understanding and literature and education. Schools are starting to introduce emotional intelligence into their career, finally, thank goodness. And the younger generation, the Gen Zers, are much more open to discussing topics such as depression. And people are learning that seeking help is a form of strength, not a weakness. What is going on with China's bed-rotting obsession? We are seeing this movement and counterculture happening in many different cultures, and it's all to do with the youth. The culture in China, especially with working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, and that's the standard. And people are opting out. Young workers are realizing that despite the hustle, the cost of living, especially housing, is rising faster than wages and is becoming unreachable. Bedrotting isn't just laziness, it's a strike and protest against a system where the reward for hard work is sometimes simply more work. With record high unemployment rates for those in their youth, many feel that the front door of adulthood is remaining locked. By staying in bed and refusing to buy housing, to start families, the youth are effectively withdrawing their economic and social contributions. For many, bedrotting is the only way to protect their mental health. There is a prioritization with the right to rest and reclamation of time, energy, and sanity. We have a low desire society going on. There is a shift towards wanting less, which by itself is not necessarily a bad thing, but there is an extremity to this movement that is quite concerning. People are going into emotional hibernation, shutting down to survive in such high pressure, unrealistic environments. And ultimately deciding not to invest more effort into a system that yields no return. So there is no dating, no marriage, no house, no kids. This is a huge problem. We have a productivity panic. The government is very fearful of such shrinking labor forces. So China is acting. We have a new 5-year plan which places high quality full employment at the very center of national development, moving away from the traditional growth at all costs. Universities and primary schools are integrating meaning of life curriculum to help students find intrinsic value and motivation rather than chasing just the test scores. And recent studies show that the Chinese youth are prioritizing personal growth and family well-being over social promotion and luxury consumption. What are the Chinese rules that builds wealth? Building wealth within the Chinese culture is deeply ingrained, and it involves a lot of discipline that might be a little bit shocking for other cultures to understand. We have very long-term generational legacy goals. We live below our means, always. It's not about what you earn, it is truly about what you save. This seems obvious, but Chinese people take it to the extreme. We usually save upwards of 50 to 60% of our income, and this is just normal. Pay now so that we can have peace later. Wealth is built on delayed gratification. Being frugal, being mindful of where we spend our money, maybe being cheap, is a virtue. It's not a negative whatsoever. This is fun for us. This is sort of a competitive piece of our culture, and we just truly love it. We brag about things that we buy at ridiculous discounts. We get really grumpy if we have to buy something at regular price. And it's being frugal is just fun, especially when you hear the conversations that Chinese people have about it. And real estate. We like to buy houses. We like to buy gold. If you can't touch it, it's not real to us. And we grow up in multicultural housing. It clearly saves a lot of money when many different generations are living under the same household, and it helps to save up for a larger capital really quickly. The power of social connections in the Chinese culture is a big thing. Who you know truly determines your amount of opportunities. That can be taken to the extreme and can turn negative. But yes, it's very much part of our culture. Education there is nothing more important than education. Growing up, you have 3 choices. You have 3 career choices. You can be a doctor. And if you don't want to be a doctor, then you can be a lawyer or an engineer. That's it. We are entrepreneurial and business-minded. There is a strong preference for taking the leap and trying to establish a successful business, even over being a high-level employee and having a solid career. And growing up, we, there's this red envelope childhood. It teaches children the value of money and the importance of saving it, not necessarily spending it. And the greeting for Chinese people, 恭喜发财, what does that mean? It does not mean we hope that you're having a great day. It does not mean that we wish you health and happiness. No, it means we wish you money. And Chinese people think in generations and legacies. Decisions are made for the third generation, not the next one. And ancestral honor, being successful in life, building wealth is a huge part of our pride that we really want to achieve for our loved ones. And we just love negotiating prices, maybe a little bit bartering, and maybe being a little bit aggressive, but just really never accepting the first offer. Everything is a negotiation, and you have to be under the mindset of at any time being able to walk away. And Chinese people are really strong with their work ethic. The ability to eat bitterness and enduring hardship today so that there is a better tomorrow for not only ourselves, but everyone that we love. Frugal people, we don't need to change. Frugality is a core personality trait for some of us. We are not cheap, we are intentional. We see value where others see waste. We are rooted in creativity, resourcefulness, and having so much fun, mainly by laughing at our own ridiculousness. There is deep joy in simplicity. You don't need much, and less is more. Less stress, more clarity. Appreciation of what you already have. Learn to savor experiences instead of purchases. We brag about deals like other people would brag about their vacations. We laugh at how little we actually need to be content. It's kind of crazy. We experiment constantly with new ways to save. It doesn't always work out. We embrace the concept. Use what you have. Do a full week of pantry clean out. Just imagine how much food is already in your home. When you need less, you fear less. You're not trapped by lifestyle inflation. You can enjoy life without chasing status. The frugal community, we understand each other's quirks in a way that only we can understand. We are generous because we've saved resources. You feel grounded, you learn patience, and you develop long-term thinking. You appreciate effort over convenience. You can invest more in what truly matters. And just have fun and enjoy the journey. We create lives that feel rich without being expensive. And living below our means just comes naturally to us. It's not suffering. We're not depriving ourselves. We just truly have a mindset of not wanting, especially things and items to fill our house. And we don't feel deprived. This is truly the way we are.